Hey everybody, welcome back to this live episode of Think Business. I'm looking forward to talking to Rana Vig, who's the current president and CEO of Blue Lagoon Resources. But Rana, your resume is so impressive. I just need to read a little bit of it. For the over 30 years of business experience, during which time you have helped to launch 5 business ventures in private industry, been involved in several publicly traded companies since 2010, serving in various roles from director to president and CEO and chairman of the board. You just got such an eclectic background, and we'll be going into different pieces of it. And you've got an impressive background, and you do philanthropy, and you've got a new venture. But I want to kind of rewind and talk to the Rana Vig in your bio that I just read. You know, I said over 30 years of business experience. So I want to go back 30 years right now. And if you had to tell yourself one or two things to make sure you maybe did more effectively or differently of what you know today to the 30 years ago you, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. I think that probably the key thing that I would go back and try to tell myself is to focus, laser beam focus. You know, multitasking is not what everyone thinks it is. Everyone thinks you can do multiple things, but really to be very, very effective at something and to really move the needle on a project that you're working on, you have to be laser beamed focused on that task that's at hand. And one of the things I had an issue with, I think, when I was growing up, and perhaps many people do, is I was just all over the place, just trying to do too many things, at once, and it does not serve you well. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with you. It's I can multitask, but I find the more organized I get, the more focused on something I get. Especially with time management, which I'm always obsessed with. You really can, when you're hyper focused, you can be so much more productive. How have you, what's your ritual around hyper focusing? Not only just when you are focusing, but the preparation and your mindset of it.
Eliminating distractions. In today's world, that is really challenging, right? Because you've got so many various social, feeds you're watching. Your email is a huge distraction. The phone, constantly getting text messages and things. So I, from the very beginning of the day, have sort of a mindset. All right, when am I going to focus on certain tasks? And I just have to, put the do not disturb on my computer. I have to turn off my email. It took me a long time. It sounds easy, but honestly, it took me a long time to get to that point, because it's like, okay, what am I missing? We live in such a world of instant gratification that somebody doesn't respond to you for 20 minutes, you think, what's wrong? Right. Right. I mean, so it's a training that you have to go through, because what happens is you're in the middle of a thought, you're working on something, you get a text message, immediately your brain goes over there, and even though you think that you're being effective, you're actually not, because it takes a certain amount of refocusing to come back. Especially if the task that you're working on is extremely important and it requires planning and strategy, et cetera. So I go through that every day, and it took me a long time, honestly, to get to that point where I could be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm always trying to figure out how to critique and do the same thing. It's hard. It's a muscle you got to build, especially when your brain and your body wants to go 150 miles an hour. I want to talk about you. You've done so much over, the last 3 decades. You were the chief executive officer of Lead Ventures and oversaw and executed on the acquisition and $5 billion plus revenue takeover of Curaleaf Holdings, which raised $520 million, making it the largest Canadian cannabis financing in history. I mean, there's the list goes on and on and on. But you also, if you just kind of zoom out, and I want to talk about you, the philanthropist, for a moment, because, you are the former chair of the BC Open Learning Agency. You serve on several public and community boards and committees. You're active in many charitable and community organizations. In November of 2017, you were invited to the Canadian Senate to receive the Senate 150th Anniversary Medal, which is all about community work. And so what's the responsibility of giving back from your perspective?
Oh, I think it's a tremendous responsibility, and it's something I think that one should be really taught from their early years. We live in such a society of possessions and wanting to grab everything and keep everything and making sure we have more toys than the next guy. Though that may be an important motivator and a driver, I think it's very important to give back, and really it goes back to. I think many, if not all religions, teach some sort of a giving back. And certainly I was brought up with the concept of, at least 10%, give constantly back. And doesn't actually have to be always, in a monetary way. Time is you mentioned earlier, time management. Time is extremely important. And if people don't have the means to give through a check, cash, there's other ways to do it. I recently started an initiative because I'm involved in public companies. I recently started an initiative to get other CEOs, encourage them to give stock, to hospitals, to charities, whatever one can do. But I think it's very important because you have to give. We need to support those areas that you really fundamentally strongly believe in, whether it's healthcare, whether whatever it might be. Might be working with kids, might be youth leadership. I've been involved with a very broad spectrum of charities and causes close to my heart. And I think it's very important because if we don't contribute and try to make the world a better place, then really, I don't know what are we here for? Just to buy the next watch and the next bigger house and the next car.
Right, and that stuff is fun in the moment, but really, at the end of the day, is almost unfulfilling once you have it.
Once you get it's an interesting thing you just said there. Once you get a taste for that giving, it's an unbelievable feeling.
It doesn't go away, right? That lasts a lifetime. Buying something great lasts a moment. And I always remember growing up, and I always used to say to my dad, "Why don't you drive a Corvette?" My dad drove like a Toyota hatchback, and we drove minivans. I always say, "Why don't you drive a Corvette like such and such's dad?" He would always say, "Because I don't need to." And I never understood it until I got older. Yes. And but I want to go back even further than 30 years, because I love when I talk to entrepreneurs like you who just have such a calm demeanor, right? When I know it's there's so much discipline and resilience and hard work behind it. Take me back to when the seed was planted in you of you being the business person that you are today. What drove you at an early age to build and to give and do what you've done the last 30 plus years?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think about that from time to time, and I think I don't know if it was a single moment. I think it's something that I was just born with. It's just the way my brain is wired. I just could not see from the very beginning myself working for someone, for the rest of my life. And I'm talking about, this is like when I was in elementary school. I mean, this was just my thought process, growing up. And it's not for everybody. People often ask. I mean, as you alluded to earlier, I've been involved in all sorts of different industries and different verticals. I'm not a specialist. I dropped out of school early. I went to university for a couple of years, and I just said, well, this is not for me. And not that I'm recommending that for anybody. I kind of wish I'd finished something. I don't know why. It just gives you some, I guess, more fundamentals. But
I just want to dive into that for a second, because my son is starting college next year, and I want him to graduate college. My daughter will start in a few years. I think college is really important. That being said, my mom never went to college. She was one of the smartest people I ever met. Some of the smartest people I've ever met never went to college or didn't finish college. And I'm not suggesting that, same as you, not to go to college. But today, when you have, I think over the next decade, we're going to see so many entrepreneurs. And we're also going to see a lot of people who cannot afford to go to college. It is, I mean, to go to college, to go to law school, if you are not of means or can get a scholarship, you are walking out of college with student loan debt that is so staggering. It will take you a lifetime to repay. And so, you know, so there are, so to that audience that maybe can't afford college, but feel like they need to go. Like, what do you say to that group when they say, you know what, I just need to go out and start something. It's in my soul. It's in my DNA of who I am. I don't have time to wait. You know, we can point to the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates and the this, but there's also a lot of people who drop out of college and make nothing of themselves because they need that foundation to get a job. So what do you say to those groups?
Well, I think that it is in today's world. I mean, it is important, I believe, to have some, some sort of fundamental basis. But there are a lot of options out there. You know, today with internet, things that we never grew up with. It makes it a lot easier. There's all sorts of online courses. When I talk about fundamentals, I'm like, for example, I wish I had finished something in university that gave me a stronger financial strength. But you know what? I can learn that today on the internet, right? I mean, I can take online courses, which are a fraction of the cost. There's all sorts of YouTube videos and various self-help things that are available. The access to information is unprecedented today, right? Just over information, in many ways, right? So I think that what I would say to those people is that, look, if you have a skill, it's Bill Gates and these examples that we use, they had a very specific or Facebook, they had a very specific talent that they applied. Many people may not necessarily have that. I didn't. I'm a generalist. So I think you have to really take a look at your own individual situation, and if you have a specific talent, there are mentorship programs available. There are all sorts of options that one can hunt down through the internet. You just have to be creative. You just have to be creative and figure out. You'd be amazed at how many leaders of today, people who are successful, don't mind reaching out and helping, as long as the other person isn't looking for some sort of a handout, right? As long as they have some talent and they really have a vision and they're driven. Successful people don't mind sharing information and giving a little bit of time and helping with mentorship.
No, everybody is looking to pay it forward in a way. I had someone call me the other day that I don't know, one of those people you don't know, but you feel like and you've got a lot of connections, to help them with a job interview. And it was great. I was happy to do it. It's like we all have to pay it forward and help out and pick up those calls to help people. I couldn't agree with you more. Who have been some of your mentors, when from such an early age and your soul is telling you like, hey, I'm never going to work for anybody. And then I always find that the universe then puts a lot of mentors and guides in your way to help you elevate your consciousness, to prepare you for what you're about to do. Who are some of your mentors along the way?
I've had several, and the reason that was the case is because every industry that I went into, I always sought out the person who I could find that was the most successful in that industry. And what I had discovered, one of the things I discovered very early on in my life is, I'm not that smart. All right. So what I need to do is make sure that I'm the dumbest.
I knew I liked you, Rad. I feel the same way. Right. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm always the dumbest guy in the room, right? And that takes a certain amount of knowing yourself and being comfortable. Unfortunately, too many people have that insecurity where they always think they have to have the answer and always think that they have to be the smartest person. What if they say something dumb? I want to be the dumb guy. I want to be the guy, who has the smartest people around me. So every industry that I've been in, I've just seeked those people out and It's interesting, they saw my drive, and whenever I would meet with them or call upon them, I would always be prepared so that they knew that I was serious. I wasn't just looking for, like I said earlier, some sort of a handout. And these people have, over the years, have served me well, and I've been very fortunate. I've stayed in touch with many of them, be it in my publishing industry or my advertising career, or my switch into the capital markets 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're talking about as far as, you always want to be the dumbest person in the room. You want to surround yourself with the people smarter than you, but you still got to be prepared. And you can't just show up dumb. You got to show up prepared, and in many cases overly prepared. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that formula, because I feel the same way. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm typically in the wrong room, and being, as you put it, being the dumbest person in the room is, you have to be able to be vulnerable, but you got to come prepared. So I love that you are talking about that. So let's talk about you now so currently now you sit as the president and CEO of Blue Lagoon Resources. You saw the opportunity that the mining industry and the comeback in 2019. And so just kind of talk a little bit about I love when I hear people say things like, things are about to, on your website, about to make a comeback, because that tells me that you as an entrepreneur understand forecasting and projecting, seeing the future, and then reverse engineering some of the things to open up opportunity. And so just can you talk a little bit about how you saw the comeback? What were the tea leaves?
Well, when I got involved in this industry, in the capital markets, that was 10 years ago, and my mentor, at the time in that industry, was very, very successful venture capitalist worth over $300 million. I mean, a very, very serious player. Made majority of his money in the beginning in mining. So that's how I got involved with it. But you know what? Entrepreneurship isn't always, often actually, is not a smooth path. And guess what? When I got involved, the whole mining industry collapsed. I put 7 figures into the mining industry, and within a few months, it was worth almost nothing. So you go like, okay, what happened? What did I get myself involved into? But because the mining sector at the time collapsed, because it's very cyclical. And I'm a big boy. I ended up taking over those companies, a couple of my big investments as CEO, and in 2018, I saw that. So that was like almost 7 years later. The market still hadn't turned, because that's another thing that in entrepreneurship, you've got to have. You got to have you got to hone in your skills and listen to that inner voice and say, well, maybe this isn't quite working out. It's not like, am I going to die, try to make this work and swim upstream. I saw the cannabis industry was becoming extremely, extremely hot. So, I laser beam, focused on there. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, I was very fortunate to take 2 of the biggest companies to market. But once I did that, I saw that mining being very cyclical, I saw trends that told me that it's been 10 years now since I entered the space and mining hadn't come back. But with all the governments around the world that are broke, basically so much debt, and then you had unprecedented levels of these stimulus packages coming in. It told me that the precious metal cycle really was about to begin, because that's an environment that gold in particular loves. And all my friends thought I was crazy in 2019 when I said, actually it was late 2018 when I said, I'm going to start a gold mining company, and everybody thought I was crazy. But thank goodness, I think I picked the right sector. Gold, is doing extremely well, and I think we're just beginning. I think it's just about to go insane here, because all the factors, everything that we're looking at, the macroeconomics is telling us that.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I love everything that you're talking about right now. I want to go back and talk about you, the philanthropist, for a minute, because as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm reminded of The Men That Built America, and I loved that show, and it's top of mind for a couple of reasons. One, I just love it, and they just came out with a new season of The Food That Built America. I don't know if you've ever seen them on the History Channel. Have you seen the? Okay, so they're unbelievable. You would love them. So The Men That Built America, The Cars That Built America, and The Food That Built America. And they just came out with a new season of The Food That Built America. But The Men That Built America, they talk about. They start with Vanderbilt and go to Carnegie and Rockefeller and Ford and the last one's escaping me, but it'll come to me in a minute. Schwab, I think I can't remember off the top of my head. And then how they built and then they gave away, and that the giving away was more potent than the build. And so, when it comes to philanthropy, which seems, as I look at your site, it's such a prominent piece of your page, with the crystal ball sparkled and the $100,000 endowment established by your family. I mean, those are big givebacks. And so can you share a little bit about kind of what it means to you and how people can maybe connect to some of these endowment funds or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, the endowment fund we put together when I was in the publishing industry, again, trying to recognize that whatever industry you're in or area that you're involved with, you should give back. And that was a endowment that we created at one of the local universities for journalism to have, and it was a very specific task, trying to make our communities better. We set up this endowment to have certain ethnicities learn about each other. So the idea behind that endowment was that a young aspiring journalist would have to learn about one of the communities and the idea being that 10 years from now, 15 years, 20 years from now, these are the future people who are going to be leading the New York Times or the big papers or issues. So you want them grounded early on. You want them to understand, because we live in such a diverse culture, today, and especially I think it's even more important today with what's happening, with all these riots and lack of understanding. We just don't seem to understand our neighbors, and the tolerance level is becoming lower and lower. So that was something we started a number of years ago. But recently, I sit on the board of a local hospital. So recently, just donated to the healthcare workers. Being COVID, they needed some equipment. So we thought, well, maybe that's the best opportunity. So I threw out a challenge, a match for $250,000, and it created a lot of momentum and a lot of excitement, at the foundation at the hospital, and many people. So the idea was, if somebody gave $1,000, I would match $1,000 up to $250,000. Yeah. So that raised a lot of money, for the cause. So I just think, whatever you or your audience, listeners, viewers, or whatever they're involved with, from Girl and Boy Scouts to all the way to hospitals and universities, wherever one can make a contribution, I think it's very important to do that, whether it's by writing a check or whether it's by time on a weekly or daily basis.
Yeah, I love it. All right, I want to hop back to business before we do a quick speed round. What are some of your best practices and how you're growing your business through the COVID era?
We've been a little bit fortunate up here. Our exploration company, our mine is up in northern British Columbia. It's fairly remote in the sense that it's a small town, about 5,000, 6,000 people. We're a short drive from there. So we haven't been too touched with that, though certainly, I live in the Vancouver area, and there's been certainly challenging, with COVID here. And I've just gone the extra mile to make sure that, we're always being safe and not taking any unnecessary risky meetings, etc. Zoom has been so 8 months ago I never heard of Zoom, believe it or not. I never used it, didn't know what it was. Today I'm on it 10 times a day. I mean, but it's interesting. It's very efficient. I'm liking it. Last week there was a mining show that I was involved with, and I did 31 meetings in 3 days.
Right. It's great.
It was,
and you didn't have to leave your house.
I could have never done that that kind of efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Because normally we'd be in that particular show was in London, and typically I would have been there for those 3 days, but it would have been nowhere as efficient. Right, and would have stayed up too late, and ate too much and drank too much, and all the things that we do when we're socializing, and so you make the best of it, and you use the tools that hand to become more efficient, because ultimately in business, if I want to make sure that this Blue Lagoon Resources is my next big win, which I believe it will be, then I need to use the tools that are available to me the best I can.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Rana, you ready for a quick speed round?
Sure.
Favorite book and why?
How to Win Friends and Influence is one of my all-time. I read that years ago. I think it just goes back, and I go back every so often to a few pages here and there. I think it's a phenomenal book, and very important for everyone to read.
Yeah, my 18-year-old is reading it right now. I love it. The best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
The best piece of wisdom I've ever received would have to be, that reinforce that always be the dumbest person in the room. And when I was told that many years ago, honestly, inside I was laughing at the guy, saying, what is this guy saying? Like, what do you mean? Right. With it, but as you get older and you start thinking about that, you really see the value, and you see why this person was super successful in all areas of his life.
Yeah, I love it. All right, tell everybody how they can connect with you, who your ideal clients are, and all that other great stuff.
The best way to do it is really to go on to our company website, which is bluelagoonresources.com. And there's a link there, an email link that comes right to me. I do have a lot of emails that I have to go through, so it may take me a while to get back. But I love talking to people and engaging. Happy to engage with your audience, and if I can help.
It's great. Well, I appreciate you being on the show. I appreciate your wisdom. Thanks for sharing your entrepreneurial wisdom today. It's great. I wish you continued success and health and safety for you, your family, your teams, then community. If Rana can help you, please reach out. And thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rana.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All right.